everybody. Welcome to Brigitting the Gap. I am Bridget Aids, and today's guest is Dr. Dan Perry. Very excited to have him with us. But before we get started, remember, please hit the subscribe button, the like button, and also the bell so that you know when I have a new show coming on. So we look forward to talking with you here shortly. All right. Hi, everybody. Today I have Dr. Dan Perry with me. And before we get started, I just want to say, Dr. Dan, I got to tell you, thank you so much for helping my husband. My husband just had hip replacement surgery, one of the two that he still has to get. But you were instrumental to not only the recovery, but the pre-op, because his surgeon said, your chiropractor helped make my job easier because he was so aligned going in, because he was off. He was off bad, and pain.
It happens, and like the better you take care of yourself, the better you can recover on the back
exactly.
end,
So I just want to say thank you, because there was a point where you were coming at night to come and help, because my husband literally could not walk towards the end. So thank you so much. And also 3 years ago when we met, you helped me with my knee, because my doctor told me I would need knee surgery, and that was 3 years ago, and I didn't. So thank you. I absolutely love you. A little selfish plug for me. But, Dan, the reason why I have Dan on today is I love his story. I really do, because I love stories of when an individual has such a dream and they leave a job and go into the entrepreneur world, but it's not always easy.
It's not. It's just
can you share your story?
Yeah, sure. So let's go rewind back to 2000.
Because I think I know a lot about you.
So I moved from Pittsburgh, that's where I grew up, and I moved to Orlando for Motorcycle Mechanic Institute.
I know, that's crazy.
That's crazy, right? So I was 20 years old, and that's kind of what I did, and I started going through the school, and I kind of needed a job, and I was looking around, and next thing you know, I found a job at iFly. The indoor skydiving, I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, but just Google it, ifly.com, and then you can just see all the cool wind tunnels. And so I worked at the very first facility in the world when it was the only one in the world, okay?
All right.
And I needed a job, and I got a job scrubbing toilets. I got a 30-day trial saying, hey, if you don't cut it and we don't see value in it, then you're not going to make it here.
Is that because you wanted to work at iFly and you were like, put me wherever I need to?
Put wherever I needed, and I just said, hey, I needed a job. I needed a job, number one. And number two, I was like, oh, this is such an amazing concept. I never flew before and things like that.
Wow.
And they were like, all right, cool, 30 days. And so I literally was scrubbing toilets, I was cleaning baseboards, I was doing all the crap work that everyone...
Literally
the crap work, right? And so after the 30 days, they're like, cool, we love you, you're going to stay. And so I worked my way up the chain, and they would bring investors in, they would want to buy the facility, and they're like, hey, remember that guy that was the helper? They're like, hey, this is Dan, he's the helper.
Wow.
And this was when I was now the lead trainer, a couple years or a handful of years later. I just worked my way up the chain, and they would introduce me.
How long did it take for you to work your way up the chain?
I would say 4 or 5 years.
You paid the price.
Paid the price.
There you go.
Being patient, understanding a bigger picture. I had to learn a whole lot of lessons. I didn't understand entrepreneurialism or anything like that. That wasn't a thing back then. Those were the people that were you don't have a career and things like that. So that was a naughty word way back then. Now it's totally different, right?
Right.
But I worked my way up the chain, and I had lots of learning to do and things like that. I think I would have been way more successful, way faster if I would be back in that position with what I know now.
Of course.
Right?
Can't we all look back?
Yeah, that's what we all
want. If only I knew then what I know now. Yeah. Is that the same?
So I worked my way up to being the lead trainer there, and then I kind of maxed out. And so I was the trainer of the trainers that would teach everybody else. So that was really cool. And then in 2006, I helped one of my buddies move out here and to Colorado, and I was like, wow, I really love Colorado.
Yeah.
And so I said, all right, I got to move out here. So lo and behold, some things fell into my lap, and the next thing you know, I had the opportunity to move out here. And next thing I know, I would say 2 weeks into it, I got my first adjustment. So a chiropractor actually came.
Wait a minute, your first adjustment ever?
First adjustment ever. I got it
How old were you?
27 years old.
Wow.
So that was a huge deal, right? Only the reason why I got adjusted was he came to our facility. He educated me, and it made sense. And then I had 5 other of my buddies going, hey, this guy's awesome, you should let him try. And then he goes, I adjust day-old babies too. And I was like, okay, cool. So I let him do that. So I got my first adjustment 27 years old. So lo and behold, we became friends, and then at lunch one day, he's like, well, I know you don't want to do iFly for the rest of your life. I said, he's like, well, what do you want to do? I said, I love what you do. I love what you've done for me personally, physically, like things like that. I love who you are as a person. Next thing you know, I decided to go to school. So 2 weeks later, after that conversation, I was enrolled in school, doing my undergrad, maxed out on my undergrad here, and then I had to kind of find a spot where to move to for chiropractic school, right? So I picked Dallas. I didn't want to go back East Coast.
So Colorado doesn't have a chiropractic school?
Colorado doesn't have a chiropractic school.
Even with DU and the big medical?
Nope.
Wow.
So they're just like a specialty school. So I picked up and moved to Dallas, right? So that was in 2010. I finished school December 2013, so I did all of my schooling, 5 years, 4 months, all year round. People were like, wait, you did how much in that short of time? I was like, well, yeah, I just got it done.
Well, you were a get it done kind of guy.
I never would have thought I would have went back to school and like done a school like that, but you know, it is what it is, right? So at the same conversation, when I decided to go to school, the guy was like, hey, whenever you're done, you can come back and work with me. I said, all right, great. Well, lo and behold, getting done with school 2013, December, I was like, hey, like, I'm ready to come back. And he's like, oh, dude, I can't help you. He's like, I'm going through a divorce. And so I was like, fine. I was like, business, right? So it happens. Things happen. It wasn't anything against me. Like, it was just one of those things. Yeah. So lo and behold, I stayed in Dallas. I created my own little company, Perry Family Chiropractic, and I stuck it inside another facility, right? I didn't have the funds in order to create like a huge office.
Cheap.
It's not cheap to start, right? So that's kind of what I did. And then I started doing there. People would meet me at a networking group and they're like, oh dude, I need to come see you. Like, I love you. I love what you do and your energy and everything else. Next thing you know, they come to my office. They're like, what's wrong with your office? And I'm like,
was it just not a good fit?
It wasn't
you.
It wasn't me. It was the owner of the facility that just created a weird vibe. It's just like, hey, I walk into a certain restaurant and I'm like, oh,
you just know how you know when you walk into a place, you're like, this isn't a good
it's
fit.
A networking group, a business, like anything is like, something's off here.
Right.
That's what was going on with my business. So I picked it up and I stuck it inside another facility like 15 miles north in Dallas, and it worked better, but it wasn't what I wanted. And I was like, all right, cool. Well, after a year and a half of doing that, the same guy calls me up in Colorado and he's like, hey, I want you to come back and work with me. He's like, I want to transition out. I want to go build another company. And he's like, I want you to slowly transition in here. I was like, great.
Oh my God. So many chiropractors would love that opportunity.
Exactly. So it was a huge opportunity. So I sold everything down in Dallas, picked up and moved back here. And that was 2016, so 3 years ago now. Well, lo and behold, that wasn't really panning out, and that really wasn't like working for him. And then it wasn't really working for me because like his business wasn't going the way that he wanted to, and he's divorced and got 4 kids. And I'm like, all right, cool, you got to pay all that money. Like, it's business. So I wasn't being able to transition in. So I was like, all right, cool. I took a huge step back. I said, well, what got me into chiropractic? Well, someone came to my facility.
It attracted you.
And took care of me. And I was like, why don't I just expand on that? So next thing I know.
I love that, Dan. I love that. I remember when you said you were going to do it.
Yeah. And it's just like changing. And then next thing you know, I'm like, all right, now I'm doing the exact opposite of everybody else. I love Tim Ferriss. And he was just like, well, I created a sales, like, he became the top person in the sales division when he did the exact opposite of everybody else. And I was like, that was congruent to me.
Yeah.
And I've like looked back now, I'm like, oh, I did something different in the past and in the past and in the past. And I'm like, that won for me. But looking back now and understanding that concept, like now wins for me. So sometimes doing the exact opposite of everybody else is going to help you win. So that's a huge thing.
So what were some of the struggles like in your mind? Did you have any like mind mess thoughts, or did you have naysayers? Or people like, Dan, that is never going to work?
So we're all our own worst critic. And
yes.
I was sad because like this isn't panning out the way that I needed to. For a long time, I had 10 years straight of like everything just like falls into my lap, works out perfectly. And then when I got done with school and I didn't come back here, it was like, whoosh, like slapped my little airplane out of the sky. And I was like, all right, cool. Well, it wasn't anything against me. It was like, hey, like that's like one of those big changes.
Okay, this is not working.
It's not working. So like, let's put our big girl pants on or my big boy pants on. And then next thing you know, I'm like, all right, cool. Well, I got to figure it out.
Absolutely.
Because no one out there is like paying my bills. Like that's just one of those things. I got to go like do the hustle, whether it's take a job and then do my side hustle or create a huge side hustle and like live low for a long time and then build up your business. And they're like, all right, cool. Like they're like, oh, like success came overnight for you. I'm like, no, it didn't. I was like, this has been like, I mean, I started going to school in 2008, so it's 11 years as of right now of like where my schooling was and learning all the lessons and going through everything.
But you didn't give up.
But it's not giving up.
You didn't give up.
So
you didn't.
It's the constant learning. It's the constant I say struggle, but it's not a struggle. It's a constant like entrepreneurial mindset. Be like, hey, there's a
Evolving.
setback here. Cool. Well, there's an obstacle. There's obstacles in the way every single day.
Absolutely.
I love that book from Ryan.
Who's that? What book?
It's called The Obstacle is the Way.
Wow.
And it's a really awesome book, and
Okay.
I've read that one. And it's just like, hey, obstacles come all the time, every day. It doesn't matter if they're big or
No.
small. It's like, oh, you just got to get around the obstacle.
But
And-
don't they say the way you handle situations is where grace comes in?
Totally.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, what
Exactly.
conversation can you have? You can be like, I can respond or I can react. You know, it's like if you're reacting all the time, I'm like, oh, time out.
Yeah, react.
So it's just like, hey, I want to respond the way
Right.
that I need to. Sometimes I need to take a step back, take a deep breath in,
Yeah.
calm myself down, or take a day or two, and then I can respond, you know? But if we're snapping back, it's just one of those
You can
things.
say things you shouldn't have said.
Yeah, you're just like, oh, I wish I could get that one back.
Right. So
But-
Dan, let's tell everybody what makes you unique. What is it that you do with your chiropractic? Because you're a concierge chiropractic.
I'm a
What
concierge.
does that mean?
So the concept that it's not new, but it doesn't happen a lot.
No,
right?
I've never heard of it.
So in the chiropractic world, like you hear people that just do house calls or only go to corporations, but like or do a little bit of corporate work. I'm like, no, 98% of my business is I go to corporations.
Yes.
Because they don't have time. They don't have because I have to get ready for all my kids to school, or I have a long
and
drive,
events
or
afterwards.
events,
Oh
or
my gosh.
life, and everything kind of adds up. And then I
Yes.
don't have time to take care of myself. Well, then next thing you know, I'm like, oh, I haven't been seen in like 10 years. I'm like, all right, cool. Time out.
Because we put our family ahead of us
Put
all the
everything,
time.
work, life, everything else ahead,
yes.
and then we get put on the back burner. Next thing you know, I'm like,
Yes.
well, I didn't know how this happened. I was like, well, when was the last time you got adjusted? Oh, 4 years ago. Oh, well, what have you been doing in that time, right? So I bring my business to companies, so
Okay.
98%, and then 2% I make house calls.
Right. You
So
better.
that's kind of one of those things. It's
Right.
like, hey, I want to take care of people wherever they're at. You know, it's like, hey, I need a house call today, or hey, can you come to my company? You know, and I care all about conversations.
Yes.
You never know who's going to be your next best client. So I just educate people on what I do, and then I have a lot of people go, that's crazy. Like, you do that, you come to companies, and then next thing you know, like, they're like, can you come to my company? Like, that's a huge thing for people. And then it's like, I'm not selling. They're like, well, let's try to get you in there.
Exactly. What are some of the companies, so our audience can get an idea of who they can refer to you,
Yeah.
like, what are some of the companies you work with? Because I know you're kind of your love and passion, like my husband Frank, are cars.
Yeah, so I found a huge niche in the automotive world. So there's
Oh.
3 different types of people that work in an automotive. We have salespeople, like that's the majority of the people that you see, but they have super high stress because they're trying to meet their quotas every single month.
Well, the maintenance has super
And
high stress.
So
Oh.
that's a huge one. So like just keeping them in line and
Yes.
keeping them on track, because
Yes.
you know what? Every adjustment stimulates their brain. The better brain function that we have, the more sales that we're going to have, the less stress that we're going to
Ah.
have, the better that we can take on all those obstacles that come in the way.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm going to just be mentally more clear, right? By just getting an adjustment. Number 2 is the people that sit at the office in the back end, they work and they sit at their desks all day long, and all they do is sit in front of the screen.
And they
right?
fall in that sedentary position of 70%.
In that, or more, right? It could be 90, 95%. It's absolutely crazy. So I don't have like an exact number, but there's people that just sit down all day long.
Well,
And I'm
why
like,
do we
okay.
sit down? I love when you explain
Yeah.
this to me. How are we sedentary, an average working person?
Yeah, so we just start to break it down and just
Yeah.
say, hey, like, well, how many hours of the day are you really sitting?
Sitting.
Well, I got up from my bed and I brushed my teeth and I got a shower, and then I got in my car and I sat and I drove, and then I walked in and then I sat some more at my job, and then I got up to lunch, and then I went and I sat at lunch,
Again.
and then again, right? So I drove there, and then I sat at lunch, and then I drove back. So
Oh
I just
my
went
God.
ding, 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 and I was like, oh, cool. And then I went back to my job and I sat some more, and then I got in my car and then I drove home and I sat, and then I went to dinner and then I sat some more, and then I went home and watched a show, and then I sat some more. And I'm like, okay, what's the percentage every day? They're like, I never thought about it like that. I was like, yeah, I was just thinking about it a little bit differently and outside the box.
Well, when
And-
you were telling me that, that's when I went and got my treadmill and my desk.
Yeah, I love the treadmill on the desk.
Because I was realizing I sat one day for 8 hours and I was sore.
You hurt, right?
I was sore. Now I go to bed, I wake up, I feel great.
Mhm.
And I'm doing like 30 miles a month on my treadmill. That's insanity.
And I just care about movement and motion, right?
And that's exactly it, movement and motion.
That's a big one too. So the people that sit at the desk all day long, the salespeople sit a lot too. Don't get me wrong, right? Because they're making their
Yes,
calls
they do.
and they're having the consults and everything else, so they're sitting a lot too. But then my third person, like that's like an ideal client, is the technicians. Well,
The maintenance.
hey, like I'm upside down and I'm looking at this
They're
piece.
distorted.
or
I've
they're-
seen them work on cars. They're all
Over.
crazy.
I had one of my guys come to me. I'm like, what'd you do? He's like, oh, I just bent over into an engine bay for 6 hours trying to get one part off. I was like, okay. So those are the three like people. So people that have high stress jobs, sales jobs, right? Or high stress environments like mental
or
stress.
physically.
The people that sit at a desk all day long, and then people that work. Like, so a trade, right, of, hey, a technician or a landscaper or something like that is like, hey, like, you can still get on my table, right? So those are, like, my ideal clients. And my niche right now is, like, the automotive world, right?
Yeah.
So the automotive world, it's like everyone kind of knows each other. Hey, you're unhappy at this job. Hey, I got a better offer over here. Well, next thing you know, if you're my client and you're
taking them over to that other
you're
place.
going to take me over there, right? So that's a huge thing. So I have a huge niche in the automotive world. And then I'm also leveraging down the service industry, too. And that's a story for another day. But it's everyone kind of knows each other. Hey, where'd you work? Oh, I worked at Applebee's and I worked at this place and this place and this place and now I'm here. And I just kind of like worked my way up the chain. Well, next thing you know, like, oh, I have friends still that work here. Cool, can you introduce me? Hey, can you introduce me? So it's all networking.
That's exactly how it turns out.
Whatsoever.
So you said something earlier. I'm going to just associate it. Everybody needs an adjustment. Don't get me wrong. But entrepreneurs really need it because we put ourselves last all the time.
All the time.
Why is it important that entrepreneurs just stop and take an hour or even a half hour to get adjusted?
Yeah.
Why is it important for us to take care of ourselves?
So in an entrepreneurial world, like I know for myself, it's kind of like that lonely spot, right? I get to interact with a lot of people all the time.
The buck stops with the entrepreneur.
But yeah, so it's just like, okay, if I'm not out hustling, then I don't make money, or I'm not like paying my bills, so I have to go help people, and then that essentially like makes me like my living, right? But I have to go help people first, right? So education, talks, getting them adjusted, things like that, thinking outside the box or thinking inside the box sometimes. So it all comes down to conversations. To me, the better I think here, the more clear I am, right?
And I feel that way. If I don't get adjusted, my brain does not work well.
Yeah, it's just like, hey,
it's true.
Good, I just adjusted that knuckle, but it's actually just stimulated my brain.
Right.
So it's all the connection back to my brain.
That's
it's all
that Eastern medicine
right?
stuff, isn't it?
When I sit down and I sit for too long, that lack of motion goes down, symptoms go up, pain, spasm, inflammation.
Because what happens when we're constantly on our computer or on our phones with our hands? Because I have you adjust me every time.
Yeah.
Because my hands get sore.
So it just comes down to wherever you're at. Hey, if I'm bent over a car, like we were just talking about for 8 hours, I'm like, oh, my low back's gonna hurt. Well, that's a different type, right? Or I'm sitting down for too long. So I want to stimulate your brain to make you feel better, because if you feel better, you're gonna have your job better. You're gonna do your job better, wherever you're at. Whether you're scrubbing toilets where I was, right? Or if you're a CEO of a company, if you're not thinking properly, you're gonna make bad decisions. And it just compounds, right?
Yes,
it's like if you're already mad just a little bit, and I come up and I like make a funny joke, and it's like, oh, like that just set you off. It just adds to it. That's how our bodies like to work. It's just like having people. It's like, oh, if something's already mad and I touch you, it's like, ooh, we can spin it up really fast.
Exactly.
Or we can make it come back down.
Exactly.
So if we don't take care of it, it's gonna spin up. If we take care of it, it's gonna get done faster, right? Nip it in the butt really quick. So I care about movement and motion. The better we move, the better we're going to feel. The better we feel, the longer we can work, the more that we can take care of our ideal clients.
The longer we'll live.
The longer we're going to live, right?
Will live.
So to me, I'm just like, okay, I think business-wise, but I think about it on like a health aspect too. It's just like, why do you work out? Well, I work out because I want to decrease my stress, number one.
And
number
he wants
two,
to eat more donuts.
I want to eat more donuts, yeah. So
he loves donuts.
That's my like vice is donuts, right? So I care about movement and motion, because the better that you work, the better that you're going to be in your life.
Yes.
Whatever it is. Hey, I want to take Bijou for a walk. Hey, if I can't move properly, then that's going to be an issue. Well, then now she's mad. Then next thing you know, it's like the compound effect, right? So I want to make you better. If you're better, then your business is going to be better. Your life is going to be better. So that's kind of where I care about the adjustment.
Exactly.
Right? It's not just about, hey, my back pain or my neck pain. It's all about my life, right? So making you smarter, making you less stressed. That's kind of where it's at. And
also, you're really big on education. I don't think you've ever been here where we haven't learned something new from you, and obviously we follow it.
Yeah.
I listen to him. I don't argue with Dr. Dan. So,
She can argue all she wants.
but he doesn't listen.
I don't listen. I just go loud.
You're like husband number 2.
What?
La la
What?
la 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 la. Yeah, no kidding. So Dan, in wrapping up, what would you say to somebody that's looking at leaving their job eventually?
Mm-hmm.
I always tell people, please don't leave until you're A, out of debt,
Mm-hmm.
be sure what you want to do, and try to creep into it slowly, not
Yeah.
leave your job. But what would your recommendations be for an entrepreneur looking at, I'm sorry, an employee looking at being an entrepreneur one day?
Okay, yeah, I have the perfect example for this, okay?
Okay.
So, 2008, when I decided to go to school, I was like, I'm quitting everything, I'm done. And then someone goes, okay, and they were a really, really smart business person. They're like, okay,
we need to talk.
Let's talk for a second. Like, you just can't up and like quit your life. And I was like, okay,
Why?
cool. So they said, well, why don't you still work, do your undergrad here. And I was actually flying on a professional team. Like, I was their coach. I was a player coach on a team, right? And so they were just like, well, let's think about it a little bit differently. Like, let's think about this smart. Well, all right, cool. Well, they helped me like still work. And then I was still on the team because they're like, hey, we still want to do a couple more things with the team. So then you can do your online classes. You can travel with us and do whatever you want.
Oh, wow.
So I was working.
You kinda had a mentor.
I had a mentor, right? But I like now when I look at it, I was like, oh, like this is a perfect example, right? So I didn't have to quit my job, right? I still was creating my side hustle, which was going to be chiropractic, right? But I couldn't go be a chiropractor until I finished the school.
Okay,
right?
got it.
So I had to go hustle on the side with my school and build that up, and then once that kind of transitioned out, then I could get out of my job. Right? So that was one of those cool things that it's like, hey, you just can't up and like just leave, but it's you got to find that hustle, you know? It's just like, well, if your side hustle is to go create a marketing group or a networking group, well, that's got to be congruent to what I have in my business, right?
That's right.
Like, that's one of my thought processes. I'm like, well, how can I build my business more? How can I meet more people? Well, maybe it's a networking group. Maybe build that, right? That could be a side business. That could be a side hustle.
And he's built the networking group too, so kind of do a plug for your networking group.
So
I have to because I'm proud of him.
I think all about networking, and you never know who's going to be your next best person, right? And I am a part of a master network, it's Referral of the Rockies.
He's the brand new president.
And I'm the president too, yeah. So
it's a big shot position.
It's just one of those things. It's like, all right, cool. Like, things have to happen. Things have to happen a certain way. Like, I got put in that position here recently, and I was like, all right, cool. Let's run with it. Let's go big. Let's think about outside.
That's what I love about you're not afraid to try things. You amaze me, Dan.
That's the one thing too that I had to learn in my business. Like, I would get up, and I was a part of the Plano chamber, and someone comes up to me like, can I help you? I was like, sure. I was like, please.
Please.
They're like, you get up and you're just like, hello, my name's Dr. Perry, and I'm a chiropractor, and I want to help everybody because of this, and this.
And now you're out of control different.
Like, and they're like, that is not you. That's not going to attract your tribe. That's not going to do everything. And they're like, think outside the box. And I was like, okay. And my example is, I was at a networking event. I was one of 6 chiropractors in the room. It was a health and wellness thing, and I was like, well, how can I think outside the box? And this was after like a handful of like fails of just getting up and be like, okay, that bombed. How did I just wasted my 45 seconds that I waited all month for, and I just bombed it. And I was like, all right, cool. But I get up and I said, and this was in a health and wellness one, I go, hey guys, I have an addiction. And people like they all like quiet down, and they're like,
is this like an AA meeting or something?
Like, what is he gonna say? I'm like, guys, I have an addiction to donuts, and like everyone lost it, and like, but then I got remembered. Like,
absolutely.
6 months later, I said, hey, I don't have a donut ever, and I tell people that all the time. I'm like, I've had one donut in like 3 months. But it's just one of those things. But then I become remembered because of like thinking outside the box. Because I go, hey, how's it going? Like, I came back to that networking group like 6 months later, and they're like, oh, like, I remember you. I'm like,
you're the donut guy.
She's like, you're the donut doctor. And I go, sweet. You know?
Yeah.
So it's just thinking outside the box. It's like finding out, if I'm an introvert, then I'm going to attract a certain tribe. If I'm who I am, then I'm going to attract a certain type of person, you know?
Right.
I turn people off. I'm like, cool, I'm not going to be a chiropractor. It's okay.
It's okay.
There's 7.7 billion people or whatever there is on the planet. I was like, there's more than enough people to go around.
I think you'll find enough backs around there. Yeah.
Like, So it's like not competition, but it's just like, hey, like, okay, like I understand like people come see me or then they go see someone else. I'm like, all right, cool. Like if that person's more congruent to you, great.
Absolutely.
And that's thinking like outside the box, and it's like, all right, cool. You just can't get mad. It's like, okay, cool. Like I love this thing about me. Like one of my patients goes, "You're my chiropractic mistress," because I'm cheating on my other guy. I was like, okay, cool. So I thought that was really funny. I was like, hey, like, but that's where my business is. I can help those people that can't go help themselves.
That's right.
So that's how I'm gonna win. I'm like, all right, cool. You know?
That's awesome.
So that's kind of where I'm at. And it's just thinking outside the box and just constantly learning, constantly like trying new things.
Always being a student.
Always being a student.
I think it's important to always be a student and never think you know it all.
I mean, we talked about lighting here and we talked about like video and everything else. And it's like,
I know.
Sometimes it's just like a fire hose, and I'm just like, yep, that's kind of how I live my life.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, let's go.
Well, being around me, it's like a fire hose sometimes. Sorry about that. But all right. Well, in closing, who would be a good referral for you? How would somebody be able to get a hold of you? And I'll have all of Dr. Dan's information down below. We'll have his website, his phone numbers, all of that. Yeah. But how would somebody... Like, so let's say, for example, I'm working in a company and I'm watching this. How do I introduce you to my company? What are the steps I would do? What would I do in my company to get you connected?
So there's a few different ways, right? Okay. So I've went through HR, like I'm going through an HR one right now. So, and actually one of my patients, she's a part of the HR. And I didn't know that before she was my patient. She's like, I'll try to get you in. I was like, all right, cool. So sometimes it's HR, but it's all in that warm referral, right? Sometimes it's just the high level manager and then they can connect me, right? And then it's other times the wellness coordinators, right?
Wellness coordinator. And organizations are starting to have those, aren't they?
Yeah, because it's all about another benefit for their employees.
Happy employees.
Happy employees, right? So I'm the chiropractor for Champ, right? So they have a handful of different stores. They have employees everywhere, right? I think they have like
Champ is an automotive dealership in Denver,
and they probably have 1,400 employees.
Wow.
And they just keep adding on more and more, right?
Wow.
But they have a wellness coordinator who's their personal trainer. They have another personal trainer. They have a massage therapist. They have me. They have a yoga person. So they have just like a wide variety of different things, right? So sometimes it's talking to that wellness coordinator, right? Sometimes it's talking to someone in that group, right? That then can go back and say, hey, like we have this guy, like he can come back and introduce us to HR and then start going through the process. One of my other ones, I just knew one of the I had the warm referral through the finance manager. Next thing you know, closed business.
Perfect.
You know?
So tell us about your networking organization, and they'll also, like if somebody wanted to start networking or learning how to network or learning how to just do what you do in business, would you be open to a phone call?
I would love phone calls. I love conversations.
You're such a giver. So about your networking organization, you know, what are you looking for as far as wanting to fill your group? It's a great organization called Master Networks. Absolutely love it.
So when I got out of school, like I had to go teach myself how to network, right?
Oh my gosh, don't even get me going on this.
Yeah, so it's
because they don't
crazy.
teach this in trade schools.
They don't teach you in school, right? They don't teach you in any school.
And it's a skill. And that's what this station's all about.
It's totally a skill, right?
It's a total skill.
And we talked earlier, it's just like, you're so good on camera. I was like, well, I've done it so many times.
He's really good on camera. I'm learning from him.
Working at iFly, like.
Do you remember a year ago you told me I should do this?
Yeah, I was like, we had this conversation a long time ago, right? But working at iFly, like, kind of like brought this out at me, and it's all about practice, right? I've been on TV, I've been on Good Morning America, Ellen Show, Today's Show, like I've been on a lot of different shows that are like, what, you've been on there? I'm like, yeah, like I just talk to the camera or I talk to the person.
You're really good. You're natural.
And it's just, it takes time, you know, because people like turn on the camera like, I freeze.
I did. You know? I did. I can't even. Ron can tell you. Ron's on my editor for this. I wasn't a natural.
But it just comes down to education and making yourself better and getting out there and like just having conversations.
Not letting fear get in your way.
And that's the same thing with networking. You know, I had to learn how to network.
Yeah.
I mean, like to me, like my personality, I had to like really bring it out in my business.
It didn't come naturally for you either, and it didn't for me either. I've shared my story.
It's the constant it's the constant trying things.
Yes.
So the networking is huge because we're it's a closed networking group. So it's one person per profession, and that's huge, right? So then I have one realtor that I can like go to, right? That's in my group. That's like my peeps, my people, my tribe, right? And that's kind of what I want to think about is like, hey, it's all about energy. Like I talked about earlier in my first business, it's like, oh, the vibe is really off here. You know, you're going to find people that are super vibey to you, or like it's going to vibe well with you, right?
Right.
And then other people are just like, oh, I went to a group and I'm like, this is the worst group in the world.
I've
I
walked
was
in,
like,
yeah.
we've all walked into this. I've actually walked into a group in Dallas, and I was the only person there. The person that like was on Meetup.com that created it didn't even show up, and I called him. I was like, I'm the only one here. What the heck, man?
Oops! I didn't see anybody registered or whatever, so I didn't show up.
So,
oh my
but
God!
I showed up, and okay. So I've been to 0, and I've been to like people that have hundreds.
Yeah.
So I've been like everything in the world. I've been to closed ones. I've been to open ones. I'm like, oh, well, like I said before, I'm like when I was one of 6 in the room, I was like, that's a huge issue. 6 chiropractors in the room. And I was like, there was only 35 people in the room.
There were 6 chiropractors.
There's 6 chiropractors.
But you were known as the donut guy.
Yeah, so I was like, all right, cool. So thinking outside the box, and then finding out the people that you want to go give business to.
Exactly.
If we don't vibe, we're not doing this video.
We're not.
Right? We're not. No. I'm not your chiropractor. You're not my liaison for this, right? So that comes down to like finding your right tribe, finding those people. So that's all I'm building, you know? Like we have 23 people in our group right now. And it's like,
wow.
Hey, some people come in, some people go out.
Where do you meet? What day?
Tuesday mornings in Lone Tree.
In Lone Tree, Colorado.
Yeah, so we can like put that down there in the bottom and things like that. And you guys can message me for that. And any questions, like I care about conversations. You can text message me. You can direct message me on Instagram. I tell all my patients to do that. Instagram or Facebook. Just find me because I might be really close. So I tell my people all the time, I'm like, just message me. I was like, rather than pick up a phone and call me, I was like, just send me a message and like I can get back to you as soon as possible, right back after a patient or things like that. So
anyway, Dan, thank you so much. I really appreciate you and always taking care of Frank and I, and I love referring you out as well. So thank you guys for joining us today. Again, remember, hit the subscribe button, the like button, and thanks for joining us. And make this the best day of your life. Take care. Bye-bye.